I'm about to say the NIV version. This then is how you should pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Choked. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts. We also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. And then there's another version, which is known as the Message. The world is full of so-called people, or prayer warriors, who are prayer ignorant. They're full of formals and programs and advice, peddling techniques for getting what you want from God. Don't fall for that nonsense. This is your Father you are dealing with, and He knows better than what you need. With a God like this loving you, you can pray very simply like this. Our Father, who art in heaven, reveal who you are. Set the world right. Do what's best, as above, so below. Keep us alive with 3 square meals. Keep us forgiven with you and forgiving others. Keep us safe from ourselves and the devil. You're in charge. You can do anything you want. You're ablaze in beauty. Yes, yes, yes.
On our first full day of the mission trip with YouthWorks this year, we talked about the establishment of the kingdom. We started by discussing what we thought of when we heard the word kingdom. Most of us, of course, saying towers and castles and knights. But then we thought about what the kingdom meant in the context of our mission in Kansas City and what it meant in our lives in general. We came to realize that while a kingdom may describe castles and towers, it also describes what God has sent us to do and His message and values that He sent us to portray in Kansas City. That day we were assigned to our jobs, and I found out that I would be sent to the Upper Room, a program aimed at eliminating illiteracy in the school system. When we went out for our jobs that day, the pressure to find ways to establish the entirety of the kingdom weighed heavily on my mind, thinking about how I could accomplish this ginormous job just through my simple job of reading with these kids. This was when I realized that bringing the message of the kingdom to these kids was quite simple, and that all I had to do was let God work through me to help them become better and show them they can be great. Hi, my name is Cami Schmalz. She had to go, so. The following passage is written to a group of Christians who God invited to be part of the upside-down kingdom. Take a good look, friends, at who you were when you got called into this life. I don't see many of the brightest and the best among you now. Not many influential, not many from high society families. Isn't it obvious that God deliberately chose men and women that the culture overlooks and exploits and abuses? Choose these nobodies to expose the hollow pretensions of the somebodies. That makes it quite clear that none of you get by with blowing your own horn before God. Everything that we have, right thinking and right living, a clean slate and a fresh start, comes from God by a way of Jesus Christ. That's why we have the saying, if you're going to blow a horn, blow a trumpet for God. This passage describes our theme of this day of being a citizen of the kingdom, and how Jesus invited those who typically were looked down upon and the poorer members of society, or who weren't useful, to be the first members of His kingdom. When it came to establishing the kingdom, Jesus chose a pretty shocking, startling lineup. Talent was lacking, money was sparse, and popularity was nearly non-existent. Jesus chose these people because they were the ones who really portrayed the message of God and loving everyone who you came into contact with, no matter what the issue might be. This related to our mission of being a citizen of the kingdom and extending that citizenship to everyone we came into contact in KC, Mo, that's what we called it, and really just sharing the message with everyone we met.
Sacrifice is a scary word. I know that personally. But when we give up what we think is good for us, but really isn't, there's something way better in return. Sometimes in life, there are choices that we have to make. We can either say yes and get hurt eventually, or we can say no and get hurt in the present, but later know that it was the right thing. The kingdom of God is a lot like that situation. There are many things that I know that I should say no to be a good Christian. There are many temptations in this world and that society claims is normal that isn't the best for our well-being and for our Christian hearts. Sacrifice isn't easy, and it definitely won't get easier. But what does it mean to sacrifice our lives to God? In some ways, the youth here have already done that. They didn't have to go on the mission trip to help people, but they did. But that's not necessarily what I'm talking about as sacrifice. Sacrificing to God is way bigger and harder than going on a mission trip. Yes, we did take a week out of our summer. Yes, we did sacrifice our sleep. But those are such minor things. What I'm talking about is sacrificing our whole lives to God. This can be challenging and scary at some times, but what the Bible tells us and what people have learned over time is that when we devote our lives to God and let Him take control of our life, it will have a wonderful outcome. A lot of times we have to say no in situations to say yes to God. That will be hard and it will be challenging, but in order to say yes to the kingdom, we have to be strong enough to say no. I know personally that saying yes to God can hurt in the moment, but I know that it will get better. Sacrifice will always be hard for Christians and for each one of us. Even if it is hard, we know that God will always be on our side. He wants us to live in happiness, but sometimes we need to sacrifice the happiness in the meantime to have happiness forever.
As human beings, something that we have always looked for is comfort. We've looked for it in clothes, friends, homes, jobs, and even in our relationship with God. While comfort can be good and is needed in our life, why is it that we shy away from stepping out of our comfort zone? If we look at Jesus and the way He led His life, He was often out of His comfort zone, as He did things that were very unexpected for His time, such as embracing children, washing His disciples' feet, healing the leper, and much more. Stepping out of our comfort zone should not be considered bad. It's something that can lead us to new adventures, such as trying new foods, meeting new people, or seeing new things. Sometimes it can be scary, but it can lead to great rewards. While we were in Kansas City, Missouri, we were challenged to step out of our comfort zone, whether it was finding ourselves through Christ or running around the plaza asking people we had never met to sing Christmas carols with us on a street corner in July. Towards the end of the week, I really started to take this lesson to heart and decided to try this in my own life. For those of you who know me, you know that for most of my life, I've been terrified of three things: bees, fires, and roller coasters. So on Friday morning, when we were on our way to Worlds of Fun in Kansas City, I decided that I was going to try the biggest roller coaster there, the Mamba. A 205-foot roller coaster that went straight up and straight down twice, and also reached a maximum speed of 75 miles per hour. And I, the girl who had cried on almost every roller coaster I've ever been on, was going to try it. I had a lot of fear waiting in line to ride it, and almost turned back multiple times. And I probably would have turned back at the very front of the line if it had not been for Kaleb blocking my way and telling me I wasn't getting out of this one. After I got on, the fear was only worse. On the 205-foot climb to the top of the roller coaster, I was frozen in my seat. The only thing I could say was I kept telling Kaleb how much I was never going to forgive him for this. However, as the roller coaster got to the top and dropped, I found I wasn't scared. I actually enjoyed it, and despite all the dread and fear, I went on the roller coaster a second time. I would have never gotten on that roller coaster if I hadn't stepped out of my comfort zone. The roller coaster had been a big step for me in stepping out of my comfort zone, but just because I did this doesn't mean you'll see me running around chasing bees or starting my own fires. But it was a start, which also reminded me of life, that sometimes if you step out of your comfort zone and let go of fear, you'll be able to enjoy the ride. In Kansas City, when I found out I had been assigned to work at an urban garden, I wasn't sure what to expect. I've never been known to be good with plants, more often hurting them than helping. In fact, my mother and brother prefer when I stay away from our garden safely in the house where I belong. However, when I met Marcella, the lady who was running the urban garden I was working at, any worries I had were relieved. Marcella taught me what it was truly like to be a disciple and to give up comfort to be the hands and feet of Christ, the true meaning of this lesson. After seeing how much Marcella had given up for this garden and how hard she worked for the better of her community in fairly uncomfortable situations, I decided to follow her lead. I picked up by watering plants, something I knew I could do diligently, where the plants would be safe from my harm. I soon found that I enjoyed giving myself up for the better of others and working to help. Marcella showed me that we weren't put on this earth to fend for ourselves and to be comfortable. We were put on this earth to help others and love each other unconditionally, which more often than not requires us to step out of our comfort zone. Throughout all of this, I was taught a valuable lesson, that in order to be the hands and feet of Christ, we must put ourselves out there to help and to love others, and to maybe learn something about ourselves along the way.